Welcome to the Passionate Pioneer podcast. Hi, I'm Beth, and I'm passionate about supporting women who are feeling disillusioned and disappointed with their career and showing them what is possible when you follow your passion. Having your voice heard, finding your tribe of like minds, and being able to get support is so important when you don't know where to turn or who to talk to. I transformed my life from the corporate world to the coaching world, and I now empower women to follow my example and claim the freedom of choice to follow their heart, soul, and passion. So let's get started. Today I am joined by Zoe Brinn. Zoe used to work in the education system as a teacher and leading senior educator. 15 years later, recognizing that the system was broken and not being able to make any bigger changes in her position, she left. She also removed her daughter from school when it became apparent that the system wasn't working for her either. Homeschooling was the obvious choice. Now, in her fourth year of being a business owner and a conscious leader, Zoe works with both new and established businesses to help them create a kind, robust, and sustainable work environment, providing systems and processes and the overall logistics of team development. She is also a public event speaker on leadership, social consciousness, and strategic growth within the education and business world. Zoe's passion is for conscious leadership practices, equality, and sustainability. Welcome, Zoe.
Hello, lovely to be here.
Yes, very nice. So it's interesting that your career started in the education system as a teacher. Now, reading your bio, obviously you didn't, when you were at school as a pupil, you didn't enjoy school. I resonate with that because I didn't enjoy it either. But then it's funny that you didn't enjoy it, but then you went into the teaching side of it. So tell us how all that started.
That's it's fairly amusing to my mother actually because
Right.
she couldn't get me to go to school. I've had ADHD my whole life, obviously, and didn't really find out until about 5 to 7 years ago. And so I found school really difficult. I was also had a lot of responsibility at home, so I felt like I felt very grown up at school and had very little patience with some of the behaviour that happened in school and so forth. So by the time I got to just before GCSE age, I was rebelling. I was walking out of school. I was answering teachers back. I was becoming very frustrated and angry. And so by the time I got to my GCSEs, my mother moved my school. So I ended up moving to a different school and found it even worse. So, but I was labelled within the first couple of months as a school phobic, school refuser, but having behaviour problems, etc., etc. And so I gave my mother quite a hard time because I wouldn't go to school. I'd get on the bus and get off the bus before getting to school. She'd take me to school and I'd walk out the back door. It was really very difficult, and I got into, let's call it, trouble within the school system. It didn't work for me. There was a very not very much understanding around the difficulties I was having. I also have dyscalculia, which is, for those of you who don't know, is like dyslexia but with numbers. And so that wasn't really explored. It was again label slapped on and get on with it kind of thing. So it really didn't work for me, and I ended up taking a break after school, going straight into work, traveling, which I loved, really, really loved. And then I came back and I started, went into university. So I did my degree, and I decided during my degree that actually I could be one of the more understanding teachers than my my own teachers were. So I went into teaching and I taught English. My mother was absolutely gobsmacked that she said, I couldn't get you to go to school when you were supposed to go to school. Why are you choosing to now? So yeah, and
Guessing it's because you wanted to make a difference. You understood the difficulties. Because the thing is with the school education system, and one of the biggest reasons why it's broken is that they just try and pigeonhole everybody. You know, the exams these days are ridiculous. You just have to sit and listen for hours upon end and make notes and then take an exam. And the thing is, there's many people, they just squash your creative skills and they don't teach you any life skills. So you basically, you're just like a robot, like a machine. You just go in and you just have to sit quietly and listen and then do an exam. And most people just aren't built that way, right?
I think it's even worse nowadays because we're like, in my day, we were taught what we needed to know and then we went and sat an exam, right? Sounds fairly simple. But now you're taught how to pass the exam. So some of it relates to your everyday life, but some of it definitely doesn't. It's kind of how to get the marks, and I'm not saying there's anything.
It's very exam focused, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and achieving focused. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with achieving or anything wrong with sitting exams or passing exams or having qualifications or getting the training, but it doesn't fit everyone. And that is the fundamental problem, is that the system thinks it should fit to everyone and it doesn't. It can't cater for everyone. It's broken. And it was when I was in school. It's even more apparent now. And my experience of teaching in that, wanting to make that change, I went in with this absolute drive to make a real difference. And I brought in things like boys only English classes, because there was such a difficulty with boys connecting with both language and literature and poetry and things like that, So I put kind of innovative things into my work, using PE alongside English to get the engagement of pupils to, access skills that they might not, or they might fight against using. And so I tried to do that. I ended up as an assistant head of a school. I worked in a special school. I worked with ADHD children. So I kind of went towards helping people who were like me as when I was a child.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, although I did get to, obviously, because I don't do that anymore, I got to a point where I realized that actually I was trying so hard to make this change and found that my leaders, and I'm not talking about head teacher, necessarily the people above.
Yeah, you're talking about the education system.
I'm talking about the education system,
right?
Absolutely. The local authority, the education system as a whole couldn't work with that.
Right, weren't supporting you, right?
They don't
understand, do they? They just don't get it. They're not willing to change. They're very rigid in their thinking, and it's got to be like this, and it's got to be like this. Well, obviously, it's not working, right? So why don't we try something new, something innovative, like you did?
Absolutely, and we got to the point we were, and good little school, and we were innovative in a lot of ways. But it didn't fit the boxes that the outside world needed. It didn't have, how many people have you got through GCSEs, for example, and all those things that are placed on schools nowadays. So I got to the point where I was overworked, I was overwhelmed, I got into that freeze mode where I couldn't move anymore, and I had a breakdown. And the system absolutely broke me. It wasn't the people within that system necessarily, but it was the system itself. Absolutely broke me. And so I found myself in a position where I needed to decide whether I was going to give up all of my training, my career, my security with regards to money and pension and all that kind of thing, and do something that I thought really could make a big difference. So yeah, and soon after that, I realised that the system also wasn't working for my daughter. I've got two boys who went through the school system not with much difficulty at all. Doesn't work for my daughter, and so I took her out and I home educate her alongside running my business.
And how's that going with the homeschooling? Because I'm all for it. You know, there's pros and cons. I think there's more pros than cons, to be quite honest. And I feel that you learn a lot more life skills when you're at home and you're being homeschooled.
Absolutely. I mean, she is absolutely thriving. She's a very bright girl anyway, but I tell you what has made the biggest difference because she's not in school taking instruction in do this way, even if there are adaptations and kind of variables within that, because she's having to really find out how to do things. She's much more motivated. She's a brilliant problem solver, and she's really connected to other people in order to solve those problems.
Right.
So her learning is completely different now to when she was in school. It was, in school, learning a subject, putting it all in one book, referring to it to pass an exam. Now, yes, she does some of that because that's the way she was in school for a long time. So that's kind of one of the ways she learns. But there are other things. She's so self-motivated. And the reason why she's self-motivated is because she's come up against a problem. The school system isn't working. We've kind of looked at how to solve that problem. And then she's looked even deeper on how to get what she wants out of her home education.
Right. So she's very self-aware, right? She's become more self-aware, self-motivated.
Yeah.
And she's able to put the creativity in with the learning.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't get me wrong, it's not that we don't come across difficulties, because we do, as you do, as you would do anywhere. But it's not all completely, rosy. But I've never had to say, stop doing that, we need to do this, because actually her learning is so much more fluid and organic and happens all of the time that I don't really need to kind of pull her up on things, if that makes sense.
Right. So, so your experience in the education system of, realizing that the system was broken, was that a motivator? Maybe you wouldn't have pulled your daughter out of school if you'd still been working in the system. I wonder if it would have been any different, do you think?
I'm not sure. Because I suppose I'd experienced that myself as a child. So I'd like to think that I would have recognised it and put things in place. But I suppose if I had been still in school, in the school system myself as a teacher and as a leader, I would probably be in a position that I couldn't facilitate that. So that would be a big factor in, there are so many people who are having difficulties that can't home educate, not because they don't have the ability to or the organizational skills to, but because they just don't have the time to, or they have other work commitments, etc. So I think I've been fortunate in that respect. I'd already been running my business for 2 years before I took her out.
Okay.
So it was, it wasn't kind of like I'm out, so you're out kind of thing. But it having that background in education and seeing it from the inside made her difficulties kind of really highlight how important it was, because I knew I'd been pushing for something, for example, with her in the school, and it hadn't been done, and I knew it's because something else got priority. And as an assistant head, I probably would have done the same thing. So I kind of had the understanding of the inside of the system, and that kind of made me think, actually, this isn't good enough for my own daughter. She's coming out,
So when you actually left the school, your story is very familiar. The feelings that you had of being, you're giving too much energetically and time wise, you're depleted, frustrated because you can't make a bigger impact. It's an all too familiar story in many industries for women. But when you actually left, what made you then decide to take this business role and go to and be a conscious leader? Explain all of that and what you mean by a conscious leader.
Well, I've got to be honest, when I first came out of education, because I had that breakdown, and it was a real thing, you know, it was a time that I wouldn't want to relive again. And at that point, I had realized, I think, that I needed something in my own head that was easier than what I was doing. Yeah. So I needed something where I wasn't putting in so many hours, something where I wasn't feeling like I was responsible for the whole world, and all that kind of stuff. And so I started by helping other businesses. So I went online, I thought, what can I do? I looked at getting other employment again and all that kind of stuff. And when I decided to first of all go into business, I just decided to help other businesses. So I was there as a business support, as a manager, you know, for other people's systems and processes and stuff like that. And then I realized that that really wasn't going to cut it for me, because once I healed myself and once I got much more well myself, that drive came back that I had
Right.
originally. And I thought, actually, I've got to make a big change. I've got to make more of a change in businesses than just making sure their funnels worked or making sure that they had something in place.
Well, it's the bigger impact that you wanted to make in the education system, isn't it? Obviously, you're a bit of an innovator and a pioneer, and you want to make a bigger impact. So that doesn't surprise me to hear that, Zoe, to be honest.
And it was basically that I wanted to be a change maker. I wanted to create that impact. And so I decided the best way forward was to use what I'd learned in leadership within schools, the fundamental skills, but mix it with my desire to create a different workspace, for not in education, but for small businesses. So I work with small businesses and entrepreneurs who've been in business normally around 3 years plus. And I have what we call the conscious leaders. And to be a conscious leader isn't something I made up, it already existed. To be a conscious leader means that you are aware, acutely aware of your decisions and your actions impacting other people and the planet. So my desire for helping society and helping those who weren't not to have a breakdown and not to go through that a terrible time I had, was not to necessarily help them at that stage, but to help the leaders of small businesses to make sure that it didn't happen in the first place, that they didn't get to that point in the first place. So I carefully looked at what would I have, if I was my leader, what would I have done differently? Yeah.
Right.
And I took it apart, and I found that doing some fundamental things like making sure that the people you hire or employ, depending on how you do that, making sure that it's not just them that fits your business, but you fit their idea of working.
Yes, values, values and belief systems that
absolutely
make sure they're aligned, right? You've got to find the right person to work with, right?
Absolutely. And the first thing I do with anyone I work with is do exactly that. We look at your values, your mission, what you want to achieve, and we find people who are so I help partly with recruitment as well. So we find the right people that fit those values and beliefs and mission and connection to their mission, in order to make sure that they've got that drive as well when they come into your business. So it helps you grow. It gives you that trust between the two of you. And also it gives them that the person you hire, satisfaction that they're working towards something that they really believe in, and so they're much better match. So it's kind of a fundamental thing that we start with.
Yeah, it's a good tool to have, because speaking to other business owners, I know that they've employed VAs and social media managers, and it's not necessarily that they weren't any good. They just didn't understand the owner's mission and values.
Absolutely.
And so they were just misaligned.
Absolutely. I come across this all of the time. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong in asking for someone's recommendation on something, and most definitely doing your due diligence when you hire someone. But I see so often people putting posts out, particularly on social media, that say, does anyone know a good VA? I need a good VA. Does anyone know a good VA?
Now, because what works for you does not work for me, right?
Exactly.
What do you mean by good? What does good mean, right?
Yes. What does good look like for you?
Yeah.
It might be different for me. Also, the word VA is just virtual assistants. There is a huge scope of specialists out there that class themselves as VAs and accurately class themselves as VAs, but they do very, very different things and they support in very different ways. So, it's not just a case of, oh, you've got someone who works hard and that's the person I want. It's much, much more difficult. And the satisfaction that people get when they've got the right people in the right places is so much more there. That whole area of trust comes into it, the whole productivity, seeing your business moving forward, having less to do yourself because someone's got your back. All those things make a huge difference in people's lives when they're trying to run their small businesses.
Yeah, it's trust, isn't it? You've got to find that special trust connection, then someone that really gets you and really understands you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let me ask you about how do you work with many female entrepreneurs, or is it male entrepreneurs, or is it a mixture of both?
I work with a mixture of both. I have more female clients than I do male, but I'm not limited to to one or the other. Part of my core beliefs then is in equality, and also diversity. It's a big part of what I offer. And so due to that, one, I don't exclude anyone from working with me, but also I advocate for difference. So like we said before, making sure that you have everything in place within your business for things that have got to do with maybe neurodiversity, disability, cultural difference, LGBTQ community. So there's a huge kind of area there that I feel needs that support. But one of the things in this group is women, providing for women. Yeah. Right. So although I don't only work with women, I do feel very connected to being a female business owner, and a lot of my background. So, for example, my dissertation when I was in university was on gender studies. So I looked at how females were treated in China, for example. It's something that I've got a passion about,
and probably the Arabian countries as well. They're they're still it's getting a little better, I think, but
not good enough. It's not good enough all over the world, to be honest.
Correct. Yeah.
But so yes, I do work with females, but not exclusively. I love working with female business owners who are driven to that kind of desire for success, and not necessarily in a way to compete with men per se, but to empower other women in order to highlight the strength that we have, and highlight the special, the specialism that we and the skills that we have as people, as business owners, rather than because we are women.
Do you find that most of the women have come out of corporate careers or professional careers before they've started their business? And there's similar stories, Zoe. Do you find that?
Very similar. So there are a lot of corporate people in corporate 9 to 5 kind of jobs who have then decided, right, you know what, I can do either what I'm doing now, but I can create my own business, or I have a different idea and I'm going to go off and do that. And a lot of them have similar stories in that they have not had a very good experience within their corporate
I was just going to tie it in with the sort of the male-dominated industries, which I hear stories. You know, males seem to have a pretty easy time; they just sort of sail through, and the women are kind of going, "Hello, I'm here."
Well, there's still, I mean, there's so many. There are so many. There are more males promoted, and that's not because there are more males on the earth. There's still the pay discrepancy between a female and a male within corporate corporate world, and that is something that really needs to be eradicated. It's caveman like, isn't it? You know,
that's where equality needs to start, in my opinion. Equality
absolutely.
needs to start with, you know, with equal pay in any industry, right? You're doing the same amount of work. Why are you getting paid less, being undervalued and overworked?
Absolutely, and you hit the nail on the head there. Undervalued. That's what it gives us a sense of. If we're being paid less, we are less valuable than men.
Yeah,
that is what it's telling us.
So then we've this is why we have this problem, you see, which is the next question I was going to ask you is, why do you think as women we're afraid to sort of, you know, break away and follow our passion and start businesses and start being leaders? I think it's because we've been undervalued for so long. It's in our subconscious beliefs of, you know, we're not good enough, we're not worthy enough, we're not valuable enough. And I think, you know, and it's those hurdles that, for me personally, Zoe, I've had to deal with that. When I came out and I started my business, the first thing I had to do was work on me. And I didn't realize that that's what I had to do, but it just became blatantly obvious that, you know, before I could help others, I needed to unpeel the layers of onion of myself.
That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. I mean, something I heard a really long time ago was that if you've got if a job comes up and a woman decides that looks like a good job, I think I might go for that, and then she reads it and decides, actually, I don't have that, and that, I don't think I'll go for that job. More often than not, they'll either apply and half-heartedly apply and so therefore not put themselves in the right position, or they won't apply at all. If you put a man into the same situation, he will apply even if he's not got a lot of that, because he wants it and he thinks, I can just do it. And that is not because he is male and she is female per se. It is because of the way that they feel valued in themselves. It's because the woman will more often, because of her past experience of not feeling valued, feel that they are putting themselves so far out of a comfort zone that they're going to fail. Whereas a man thinks, I've had opportunities arise before and it's worked because people value me, and so they go for it. Now, this isn't I'm not blanket statementing the whole of society or every business, because obviously there are really good ones out there. But we've got fundamental work to do as women on ourselves to make sure that we're putting ourselves in as good a position as possible so that we reach higher, not because we want to go out and beat men, but because we want to reach for the highest possible thing that we want and be able to access it and get it and have as much opportunity to get there as anyone else.
Yeah, and recognize that it is available. It is available to us, regardless of the years of conditioning that we've been subjected to, right? That it is available to us and we are capable of more than we think.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I would say is, if anyone's listening and thinking, and they're in a 9 to 5 and they think that's not, that's out of my reach, it really isn't. I'm not going to say that it doesn't involve risk. I mean, don't do anything that's too risky, obviously, but it's always going to have an element of risk. Weighing that risk up analyzing that and saying, is it something I can do? And then reaching further, it gives you so much satisfaction, gives you so much potential to reach further and grow as a person, and ultimately makes your life happier, right?
Well, when you're following your passion, when you find something that you really love to do, and you're doing it for you, you're doing it for the future you,
Absolutely.
and you're not giving your time and energy to somebody else and doing it all for them. There's a big difference, but it can feel scary, it can feel overwhelming, and it's good to get support, and it's good to find your tribe. Did you, when you stepped out of that, of that professional world, and you went into, well, I think I can do business, who did you talk to, Zoe? Did you find a tribe, or what? Tell us the story of how
I
you managed
kind
to
of,
find support.
well, I looked online. I can't say that I got it right every single time,
Right. Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I thought to myself, well, if I'm going to help people now, I live in quite a small town, so in South Wales. So I thought to myself, if I'm going to reach more people, I need to do that in the online space. And I started to kind of like go, well, listen to lots of different people. I listened to various different coaches doing free lives and free bits of education here and there. And I looked on YouTube, and I looked on the, your normal kind of Facebook and Instagram, and looked on the social channels, and I found people who I felt had had more experience than I did, and two, I felt connected to. So once you've found people who are more experienced that you have a connection to, you listen to them more, right? So I started consuming more of their content until I got to a point where I could invest in something, and then I invested in working with someone online who I'd connected with, and I kind of like took it from there. And I think once I had a little bit of confidence and I could see other people doing what I'm doing, and I'm not talking about, I must kind of reverse a little bit. I didn't look at them and think they make lots of money, or they make more money than I do, or anything like that. It was more about the experience and expertise they had.
Right.
And once I could find someone who had more experience and expertise, and I felt that they could help me on my journey, they're the people that I kind of,
Yeah, absolutely.
and it
Because it's not
changes.
about reinventing the wheel, is it? If you think, oh, I'm not sure I can do that. You could, if you find other people, other coaches, other entrepreneurs, other people that are doing that, it can be done. It's possible, and it gives you a boost of confidence just knowing that, oh, look, that's possible, right?
Absolutely. And I think that you find different people depending on your, I mean, there are some coaches out there who would want you to do all of their own things for the rest of your life. But actually for me, what worked was a little bit of this, now I need something else, a little bit of that. So I found lots of different people who met my needs where I was at that particular time. So once I'd worked with them for a certain amount of time on the thing that I wanted to at that particular point, I then found my next thing, and it wasn't necessarily with them. And good coaches will always understand that. Good coaches will always think, yes, I've done what I need to do with her, and she's got what she needed from me, and now she needs something else. And that's what happens.
Yeah, it's
So
finding
yeah,
your
so I found
tribe,
that.
isn't it? It's just finding the people. It's one of the reasons why I've started this podcast. I started it for women who are in the professional field, who are feeling frustrated, overwhelmed, undervalued, just pissed off, basically.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely, yeah.
And and I want them to listen to these stories from women like yourself, Zoe, that have done it, have been there, who felt just like they did.
Yeah, absolutely.
I felt the same way too. But to show them what is possible, and to kind of lead the way, because we need leaders. We need more female leaders.
We absolutely do. I mean, we need more female leaders. We need more empowered leaders. We need more conscious
Conscious
leaders.
leaders, yeah.
We, and the more people we can get into those positions running really sustainable, transparent, ethical businesses, the more people we can have in that, the better that our society will be, the better it is for our next generation, the better it is for our children, right? So if we can create sustainable models now, the next generation who are coming into the workforce might be hired or employed by one of these companies or one of these businesses. And so we want our own children to go into those secure environments, don't we?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think it's much more important than just if you're thinking I'm in my 9 to 5 and I want to make a difference and it'll only really make a difference to me and a couple of people around me. It won't. If you're a female and you get into a leadership position, leading your own business, and you're starting to bring other people into that business too, you can make a huge difference to so many people's lives.
And then networking, oh my goodness, when I started, I mean, the networking was just incredible. I've just got a network of amazing entrepreneurs, that I speak to regularly. We have little chat groups on Messenger and WhatsApp, and sometimes we have Zoom meetings. It's just, and it's just incredible to watch their story and how they're, pivoting or, growing, and the same with me and the different things that we're doing. But it's, somebody said to me, you're creating a community here with the podcast. And so that has led me to now thinking about, I am in the process of building a membership program. And I wanted to talk to you because you have a membership program, don't you? And I think this is becoming a really popular way for, for my audience, my listeners, it will be, women that have already left and women that are on the verge of leaving with one foot out the door. And I think that's a great mix of, coaching and training and learning and growing and inspiration and motivation and all of those things put together in a mentorship group.
Yeah,
a membership group, which is like a mentorship group, really. And I just wanted you to talk a little bit about your membership because I was reading about it, fascinated.
My membership is for conscious leaders, and it might be that it's just you in your business and you're leading yourself and your business. You don't have to have like a great big team of people, but of course it is for those who have teams and people that they look after as well. And it's a place.
And how do you find that works with the dynamics and them all connecting with each other? And I'm fascinated to.
So I have a couple of different ways, and there's good reasoning behind this. So we have a Facebook group, and everyone's in there, and we have I do lives in there and do bits of training in there so sometimes I do some systems training for their teams, like I'll do like a little Trello training, and sometimes I'll do a leadership training on how to delegate well or whatever it is. So we have that, and they can connect and ask questions and discuss in there. But what I also do is I have a Telegram channel. Now, the reason why I've got a Telegram channel as well is because there are some people, especially leaders of maybe bigger businesses, who want to stay off social media and they go on at particular times of the day because they find it zaps their energy and it zaps their time out of their day. So I will post on that Telegram, this is coming up, or this is happening, or so they can deliberately go and consume something instead of spending a whole lot of time doing that and not running the business. So we have two ways of doing that. And the other thing I do is once a month, I put out an on-call day where I make myself available all day to anyone who's in the group. And they can either use me to keep themselves accountable. So I will keep checking in and saying, have you done that yet? Bit like a nag.
We need that, right? That's why we need coaches, mentors, teachers, membership programs. This is why we need this connection, because we need accountability, even as leaders.
Absolutely.
We need it.
Yeah, so that will keep them accountable to do something. Sometimes people will say, I just need someone to keep reminding me that I've got to get my books done today or whatever it is. But you can also use that on call to, if you've got a specific problem, we jump on a Zoom for half an hour and bash it out, so they can use it for that. And then the other thing they can do is just message me. So it might be that throughout, I know what one particular member throughout the month writes a little note on their Zoe piece of paper, and then on that day will send me those messages and say, I've had this difficulty and this difficulty and that, and then I'll give them some advice on that, or point them in the right direction, or
That's nice.
say to them, let's book something in so that we can solve these problems. So
Yeah, like a Q&A day, right? Really. So
yeah,
that you can
yeah.
really get to the heart. I really like that, Zoe. That's really
And
that's
I'm
interesting.
I'm thinking of, well, no, I'm not just thinking of, I am going to be. So I'm going to be launching another part of that membership. So I'm going to have kind of two tiers. So what exists already will still stay there. But what I wanted to do was add on some in-person things so that we can actually meet once a quarter in person somewhere appropriate and have a nice lunch or something, and then actually connect with other leaders of businesses and do some workshops around that as well.
That's nice. Maybe a retreat, Zoe. Have you thought about
Maybe
retreats?
a
Love
retreat.
retreats, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to create a retreat membership first, and then I
Yeah.
shall and then do some in-person retreats. Yeah. It's interesting that you use Telegram. I am on Telegram too, but I use Voxer for my business
Oh yeah. Yeah. That, I mean, that works
clients.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's really great. You can put everybody together. You can send documents and up-to-date information, and have voice calls. Yeah, so I like that. So let's just wrap up. And because we've answered quite a lot of my questions, to be honest, about female leaders
Yeah.
and how we felt in the professional world. And also about finding your tribe and mentoring coaching. So do you have any final advice for our listeners today about, why they should follow their passion and get out of the 9 to 5?
Well, if you're thinking of getting out of the 9 to 5 and you want to follow your passion, what I would say is, as I said earlier, I wouldn't necessarily put yourself at any stressful risk. I would weigh up what you have right now, do a pros and cons, write it all down, discuss it with your important parties of people, whether that's your family or your friends, and really kind of like, dig in as to how that would look for you. Don't be under the impression that it will just replace what you've got within a matter of weeks, because it's very, very difficult to, I came from quite I came from a position that I had a lot of security, and I was the main breadwinner in my household, and so that didn't get replaced straight away. It wasn't a case of, oh, I've decided to do this now and leave all that behind, and within a couple of months I was earning as much as I was then. That isn't the case.
It
So
takes time, doesn't it?
does take time. So be realistic, but don't let all of those things stop you from getting to your passion. So if you think to yourself, you know what, I can't make enough money here, look at it again. Is there a way that you can get to your first milestone quicker? Is there something that you can change in your life that you're not spending as much money so that you don't need as much right now in order to get to that passion? So I'm one for analyzing, as you can see.
Yeah.
Dump it all down. Get your
Listen,
pros and cons.
I
Talk it all
understand.
out.
I totally understand. It's the same thing that I say, don't just quit today and start your business tomorrow. Do it in stages, educate yourself, like you talked about already. Find your tribe, find the group, find what you're passionate about, find a mentor or a coach. And then do it in stages. You could even sidestep into another job that's more aligned to what you want to do, and just to as a side step, so you can still pay the bills basically.
Yes.
It gives you that monthly income, but maybe you're not working so many hours and you can put the time and effort into building the business, right? So
It's absolutely.
yeah. It's people have the wrong idea of it's just success tomorrow. It's just like that.
It doesn't happen like that. And it's I suppose probably my biggest message would be to make sure that you've got that realistic element about what it will look like for you and your family or your dependents or whatever on a real scale before taking any risk. But don't avoid taking risks. If there's a safety net and there are risks that you need to push yourself out there and get yourself out there to get to it, it is such a rewarding thing to be able to do what I really love and help people to grow their businesses. I wouldn't change it for the world now.
No, neither would I, Zoe. Great. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope our listeners got some real nuggets, gold nuggets there of information. Thank you again, Zoe. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening today. If you would like to join me in telling your story about how you are quietly quitting your career and how you've got 1 foot out of the 9-to-5 rat race, or if you are a woman who has a story about already leaving the professional world to follow your passion and can offer inspiring advice, then please message me to get yourself booked in on an episode just for you. If you have a question for me or would like to know more information about how I can support you in one of my passion programs, please message me on Instagram, Facebook, or visit my website. You can also grab your free copy of my workbook, Your Passion Journey Starts Here, by joining my online community. And don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy this podcast and share it with your friends. Until next time, this is Beth Taylor at the Passionate Pioneer Podcast, signing off.